Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start this session by talking about the Boren Award. Oops. There we go. All right, so the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship can be used for, or towards, I should say, a study abroad or an internship abroad program. So it could be used towards one of our programs, a program through Eccles Global, a program through the Hinckley Institute. It has really broad applications. All right, it is funded by the U.S. Department of State. And as you might imagine, it is intended to promote citizen diplomacy. So it's there to help students study abroad, but the motive behind it is to promote mutual understanding between the U.S. and other countries. It is also designed to be a door opener for students who traditionally haven't been able to access study abroad or intern abroad programs. 47% of recipients traditionally have been first generation college students, so the first in their families to go to college. And 65% of recipients represent racial or ethnic minority groups. And so in many ways, it is a financial need-based scholarship. You have to receive the Pell Grant to apply, but it's also in many ways a diversity scholarship. And for those of you who've attended the OGE scholarship presentation, you'll notice that the prompt for our diversity scholarship is almost identical to the Gilman scholarship essay prompt. That's intentional. So this scholarship's been around for almost 10 years, and in those 10 years they've awarded over 33,000 scholarships. They have a lot of money, and there's a growing alumni network, which is cool. Students have gone all over the world, and they've come from universities across the United States. So it is a national award. You're competing with other students. Typically, the way they set up the selection process, you're competing with other students in your region. So you'd most likely be competing with students from kind of the Mountain West. The scholarships are up to $5,000. And the award amounts really vary based on two criteria. First one being the quality of your submission. Each scholarship applicant is ranked. So the higher up you are on the ranking, the more money you'll get. And that kind of trickles down to the lower folks on the list, and they kind of get what's left. The other piece that they use to award or determine awards is your financial need. So more money goes to those with the higher need, and part of that is impacted by the cost of your program as well. So it's that kind of need to cost kind of consideration. Students can apply their awards towards programs that happen at any point throughout the year. There's all kinds of different term options, including academic year and even calendar year programs. The programs do have to be at least 3 weeks long, and we'll, I think, talk about that later in the presentation as well. There's also an opportunity to increase your award if you're planning to learn a language. So that's kind of cool. So if you're interested in a high needs language, there's a list there of things that they consider. It's a bummer, Amanda, because you could have maybe used this to study Chinese since you're interested in going to China.
Yeah.
You're still the Boren, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty cool. Additional option. In the past, we've had recipients. Just last year, we had a student who was interested in learning Portuguese, and he went and used his critical need language award to study in Brazil. So pretty cool opportunity there. Okay, so I've talked about some of this. So you have to be a U.S. citizen, an undergraduate student. You have to receive the Pell Grant. You have to do a credit-bearing experience. You have to go to a country that is deemed safe by the Department of State, and they actually have a website, travel.state.gov, that outlines safety information. Right now, as far as I understand it, every country is a level 4, so do not travel because of the pandemic. And so that information is going to be updated regularly, and obviously we wouldn't send you abroad if it was unsafe as a university, but also Gilman would not let you either. And so they are working during this pandemic, this unprecedented time, to be as flexible as possible, just like the University of Utah is, and allowing you to defer and even apply your program or your scholarship towards a virtual program if you need to. So yeah, they're being super flexible, but they, with deferring your program, pushing it out to a different date, changing your program location if need be. But they won't let you go if it's not safe. Neither will we. And you have to go abroad for at least 3 weeks in order to be eligible. So if you're thinking about a spring break or fall break experience, it doesn't qualify. Okay, so yes. There's also a Gilman McCain. This is a flat 5,000. In order to be eligible for this, the main difference is you have to be the child of an active duty military member. So it's very specific. And you don't have to be a Pell Grant recipient, but you have to receive some kind of Title IV. My Roman numerals aren't great. Title IV federal financial aid. So Pell is Title IV, but there are other types of aid that would count as well. So comparing the Gilman McCain to the traditional Gilman, the selection criteria, essays, deadlines, the certifications, which we'll get into in a minute, and the benefits are the same. The difference is it's a flat fee. They have only 100 awards, and I would say, at least in the past year, it's been less competitive. They have a lot fewer awards, but they don't have that many applicants either. The application is on a separate website. The eligibility obviously is different because your parent has to be an active duty military member. Okay, so how do you apply? You apply online. There's kind of 2 portions to the application process. So you would apply, write your essays, submit them, submit copies of your official transcripts, and then you would select your certifying advisor. And you're gonna have 2. One of them most likely will be me. I'm the certifying advisor for campus for most programs, although Jean O is the certifying advisor for Hinckley. So if you are planning to apply your Gilman scholarship towards a Hinckley experience, you would pick Jean. It doesn't really matter who you pick from the financial aid office, they all do the same thing. What the certifiers do is, well, Jean and I will certify that you're like legit, you're not just making it up, you've actually started an application to do an internship or an abroad experience. And then we also certify how much this experience will cost. You're gonna have to submit information about that, and we're just gonna verify that it's correct. We would do that after the application deadline. So you're gonna submit everything, you're gonna pick who's gonna certify. We can't certify your application until it's done, right? And so we have an additional week to provide our certifications after the student application deadline. Okay, so the application, it is a way for you to basically interview for the scholarship without actually, talking to anyone. So it's basically like an interview in written format. You basically tell us or tell the selection committee, who you are and what you're doing. So that's what that essay is all about. And I have a writing tips guide, and some of the sessions that are solely dedicated to Gilman later on in the semester will go into some of those writing tips in more detail. The second essay is called the Community Impact Essay. For this essay, you have to talk about how you're going to engage in citizen diplomacy while you're abroad. And so a lot of students get really intimidated by this. This is a big part of the Boren essay. Citizen diplomacy is really broad, and it can be as simple as meeting local people and making friends, right? And so don't get too intimidated by this. You don't have to like get involved in government to engage in diplomacy, right? It can be getting to know the people in your local community, getting to know your classmates. It can be living as a host family. It can be getting involved in service, learning experiences, or research. It can be joining a club. It can be a whole host of different things. But you'll need to talk about that in your essay. And you'll also need to talk about how you're going to give back once you return from your abroad experience. So once you return to the U and to Salt Lake City, how are you going to inspire other students to go abroad? Share your experience with students that you know or people back in your home community even. And we've had some really excellent proposals from students. I had a student who got permission from her church to give a youth sermon about her study abroad experience. I had a student who was a refugee, and she had been part of this refugee group student organization in her high school. And she went back to that organization and talked about the Gilman Scholarship with some of her former classmates and some young people from her high school. I've had people present with me for these scholarship presentations who've tabled with me at different events. So it's really broad, but I would say the more creative. I had a student write a song about his experience studying abroad in Mexico. So yeah, it's really, really open-ended, and it's meant to be fun. So lots of options. And then the third essay is optional, and that is a critical need language award. And this is basically your proposal for how you're going to learn this language. And it's important to make sure that you are pursuing an immersive experience. If you want to study Russian in France, that's not going to fly, right? They want to make sure that you're immersed in that language, that you're really serious about it, and you have a plan to make some serious language gains. So you want to outline that plan, talk about what classes you're going to be taking, what you're going to be doing outside of the classroom. And here we are at selection criteria. So what do the committees look for, right, when they're selecting recipients? Number one, they look for the impact of the program and destination on your academic and career trajectory. Just think about it, if you're sitting on a committee and you're supposed to select recipients, of course you're going to want someone who's really serious and who's made it clear that they're making the most of their international experience, right? So making sure that you make that abundantly clear is really important. That you're not just like, yeah, I want to go to Spain because it sounds cool and like I want to go to the beach, right? That's not going to be good enough, right? How does this connect to your academic and career goals? And how does this connect to you as a person in your own personal growth? They also want a student who's serious about giving back and who has a specific plan to do that. So there are a lot of students in their essay who say, yeah, when I get back, I'm gonna like reach out to the study abroad office and see what volunteer opportunities are available. That's great, but it's not really specific, and it's not really, doesn't really convey a sense of commitment. The essays that really do well with the students who are like, yeah, I have already reached out to my high school Spanish teacher, and she has agreed for me to give a 20-minute presentation about my study abroad in Spain to the Spanish club. And during my presentation, I'm going to focus on the Gilman, affordability, as well as my experience and how it's connected to my goal of becoming a Spanish teacher, or whatever it is, you know, getting that level of specificity and showing that you've already coordinated some of the details will make a huge difference. Academic preparedness, right? Making sure that you demonstrate that you mature, number one. Number two, that you can handle the academic rigor of the experience. Number three, that again connects to your, that it's a logical next step in your academic development is important. And then obviously, like I said, this is in many ways a diversity scholarship. So thinking about how you might meet diversity criteria, and that diversity criteria is super broad. So things to think about. Are you part of an underrepresented racial or ethnic group? Are you the first in your family to go to college? Have you gone to community college before? Or have you transferred in from another university? Are you studying a discipline that's underrepresented in study abroad? Hint, STEM and fine arts. That's an important thing to list. I'm trying to think if there's other stuff. Do you identify as LGBTQ? Those are just some examples. Do you come from a military background? That's another one. Are you older than the traditional college student? There's a whole list. I could keep going on and on. But yes, think about some of those things. And I recommend visiting our diversity and identity guides on our website, the Learning Abroad website, to start thinking about how your identities might impact your international experience, and get some food for thought in thinking about your identity in relation to this scholarship and the essay requirements. And obviously the last piece is, if you're doing the Critical Need Language Award, you need to think about and really convey a commitment to becoming proficient in the language and taking that seriously. Okay, deadlines. The next deadline is a little over a month away. It's October 6th. You can see the advisor certification deadline, what Jean O and I will be doing, and what the financial aid office advisors will be doing is a week later. And then, and that deadline is specific to students who want to go abroad, basically at any point in 2021. And then the March deadline is for students who want to go abroad in the summer of 2021, right? No, yes, summer 2021, fall of 2021, and the spring of 2022. And that deadline is the first Tuesday in March. You'll notice the deadline closes at 11:59 Pacific time. So you get a little extra hour because we're in Mountain Time, which is nice. So we get until 12:59, almost 1 a.m. So yes, but that's 11:59 Pacific time. And these are just some pieces of advice from applicants. I'm just going to speed through these because I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about the Boren. And again, there will be a more drawn out session on this and with activities for writing the prompts later on in the semester. Some of the benefits of applying for this scholarship is that you get a little leg up if you're interested in working for the federal government. There's a whole alumni network that you'll have access to. They have seminars and career workshops. They'll even send you to different areas of the country for those, which is really cool. I would also say just applying for the scholarship is a benefit. It's an opportunity for you to learn more about yourself and refine your goals. And if you're thinking about graduate school, if you're thinking about applying for other nationally competitive awards like the FLAS or the Fulbright or the Boren maybe later on, it's going to come in handy. Those are skill sets that you'll use later on, even if you don't get awarded. I will say though, the chances of being awarded are 1 in 4 nationally, And historically at the U, we've had a 1 in 3 award rate. So we did pretty good here at the University of Utah. Yeah, the Gilman has their own social media presence, and they have all kinds of resources and workshops that they run. I encourage you to check those resources out. Just like I was mentioning, there are other really great scholarships run by the federal government. There's the Critical Need Language Scholarship, which is very similar to the Boren. It's an opportunity to learn a critical need language. Those scholarships apply towards specific government-run programs that are highly intensive and rigorous, but yield incredible results in terms of language gains. There's a Fulbright program. That's for graduate students like you, Amanda, or for students who are recent graduates of their undergraduate bachelor's program. That funds a full year abroad doing research, pursuing graduate studies, or teaching English. And then there's the Boren, which we're about to talk about now. So there's Gilman's contact information. They're great to get in touch with. They're very responsive. If you have any questions about the application portal, the process, I recommend giving them a call, shooting them an email. Of course, you're welcome to contact me, and I'll share that contact information at the end of the Boren presentation. Questions on this, Gilman? No, okay, great. We're gonna jump into the Boren.
Question, sorry.
Yeah.
Do they make application decisions regardless of how early you apply after the deadline is passed?
No, they don't really factor in when you applied. As long as you get your application in by the deadline, you're good. I will say it's much less stressful to submit it early. And I will also say that if there are any technical difficulties and the website crashes, as it has done in the past, at the last minute, and you're not able to submit your application, they will not have any pity for you. And they will not make any exceptions. So it is in your best interest to submit. I always recommend at least 24 hours before the deadline. Yeah. So you don't have to suffer any unwanted consequences.
Sure. So then do you find out whether or not you got it earlier if you apply earlier, or no, it's all the same
No,
time?
everyone finds out at the same time. It's not rolling. And that's true for Office for Global Engagement Awards as well. And for the Boren. And I would say it typically takes them a month or two to select recipients and communicate those results out to recipients. Okay, we're going to jump into the Boren. I'm going to take a little sip of water because I'm starting to lose my voice. Okay, all right. So here's the Boren. This is a pretty cool award. It is pretty involved. It was established 30 years ago, almost, by the federal government. And it's a way to really enhance citizen diplomacy and also create a pipeline to federal careers for students. So, in order to be eligible, you have to be a US citizen. You have to be planning to learn an eligible language in an eligible region. You have to be a matriculated or degree-seeking student, either an undergrad or grad student. And you can't also be a citizen in the place you want to go. So if you're a dual citizen, you can't go to that other country you have citizenship in. Okay. The award amounts are pretty significant. up to $25,000. So it's a pretty generous award. And it covers a lot. It's pretty all-inclusive. The only thing it doesn't cover is vaccination and personal expenses, like travel expenses, for example. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so there's different types of Boren Awards. So there's fellows, those are graduate students. And there's scholars, which are undergraduate students. And you can see that the type of student who pursues a Boren is not your average study abroad student, right? The majority of students across the country studying abroad are going for short-term summer experiences, right? 65%, as you can see in that bottom bar. The majority of the Boren scholars and fellows are going abroad for 6 months or more, right? So these are students who are really interested in going abroad for a long period of time. You can see actually all of the graduate students are doing that. And there's just a few Boren scholars who go for shorter periods of time. And those are a specific subset of applicants who are STEM majors. You're only eligible to be considered for a short-term experience if you're a STEM major, like engineering, for example. All right, so you can see here, the Boren Scholarship is really seeking to encourage Americans to study languages that Americans typically don't learn. They will accept, applicants who are looking at learning Spanish or French or something more traditional, but your chances of being selected are very, very low if that's what you're pursuing. Probably once in every few years a student is awarded for Spanish or French, with some exceptions. You can see French is on the list. If you're looking to learn French in Africa and you are already close to fluent in French and want to expand your language skills to a specific area, like maybe you want to become a doctor and you need to know the medical jargon, or you want to become an engineer and you need to know that engineering technical jargon in order to use French in your job, that could fly. But you really have to make a strong argument and you have to be willing to study in French-speaking Africa to do it. But yeah, you can see there's a broad array of languages. They're determined or designated as high-need languages by the federal government, languages that are really important to U.S. National security and U.S. interests, diplomatic interests. Here you can see a list of different countries that are eligible. And you can see they're outside of, that Western Europe, right? This is maybe an easier way to look at that. So you're welcome to go anywhere in the world that isn't indicated in gray, and you'll get a little bit of an advantage in your application if you choose a country that is green. If you choose a country that is blue, you need to say why, or you need to pick a plan B. Oh, and I should also say you can't go to the typically can't go to the countries indicated in white for security reasons. Although you could go to Mongolia. I don't know why it's indicated in white. That's definitely an option. North Korea, not an option. Somalia, not an option. So yeah, so there are some exclusions. Some of those white countries might be viable, others not. So, but yeah, if you choose a plan, or if you choose a blue country, you need to have a plan B, because you may not be able to go. Similar to the Gilman, your country needs to have a level 1 or 2 travel advisory in order for you to go. If it's 3 or 4, they will ask you to modify your program plans. So the application includes 2 essays, several letters of recommendation, transcripts, and a description of your plan to learn the language, your program and your plan. For graduate students, you'll also need to have a research plan. Now, it doesn't have to be extensive, and it shouldn't be the primary focus, because the primary focus of the Boren is becoming proficient in the language. But you should have some small research plan that is a component of your experience. Okay, so the first essay is about national security. So basically for this essay, they want you to think about your major and your interests and how studying in this country aligns with those interests and can help advance national security. And there is a way to connect every single major and discipline to national security. Amanda was sharing that she's studying environmental sustainability, right? That has a huge connection to national security, right? Because the way the world is changing is going to influence all kinds of things in terms of, you know, human mobility. You probably know better than I do, right? You can make a case for how it's impacting our national security and world affairs, right? So making sure you make it specific to your interests and connecting that to national security and foreign affairs is really important. So the specific prompt is explain the significance of your proposed country, region, and language to U.S. national security. The Boren Awards recognize a broad definition of national security, but you should make a specific, detailed, and focused argument. So figure out how your major connects to national security, and then connect that to why you're studying in the country you've chosen and why you need to learn that language. Okay, so the examples of national security are defense, diplomacy, intelligence, economic development, democracy and governance, environment and sustainability, food security and agriculture, public health, cyber security, immigration, trade and commerce, financial regulation, telecommunications, and on it goes, right? So there's so many ways you can connect your major and your interests to national security. National security is anything that protects and promotes the well-being of the United States on the international stage. And one way to think about writing this essay is if you had 5 minutes to explain why going to this country, learning this language will help you as a professional advance national security, and why doing this is important to your kind of congressional or Senate representative is a good way to kind of practice writing this essay. Right? Why should this topic, why should your interests and goals matter to at the national level? Essay 2 is all about public service. So if you apply for this scholarship, you really should have at a minimum an interest in working for the federal government for a year, ideally for longer. You should be looking to become a career public servant. And there are all kinds of departments that you could potentially work in. For example, for you, maybe Amanda, maybe that's the Environmental Protection Agency, for example, right? So this essay, number 1, the first part is writing about your fit. So what experiences have you had in your life so far that have prepared you to learn a language? And they really want to know you're going to be serious about this, that you are comfortable going to some of these countries that are very different from US culture, and that you have the skill set and the determination to do what is very difficult, learning a language, right? It takes a lot of hard work. So you want to know you're ready. And the majority of this essay should really focus on your interest in working for the federal government. So in order to do this, you should really do a lot of research on what jobs are out there, pick a career path, and explore what skills and experience you need to make that happen. And one of those experiences should be going abroad, right? Doing the Boren experience. So yes. So it should focus on your personal growth, your preparation for the experience, and your plan to become a professional in the federal government. Okay. So you should do your research on the federal government jobs page, which is linked down there. There are all kinds of different agencies you could work for. These are the most popular and preferred. Department of Defense, right? Some sort of military career, especially if you're interested in STEM fields, if you wanted to maybe be a doctor or an engineer for the military, that is highly preferred. If you are already in the ROTC, you should definitely mention that. Department of Homeland Security is another one. Department of State, of course, and the intelligence community as well. And last year I worked with a student who wanted to work for the CIA as an example. And I will mention that a lot of the jobs that these agencies have require at least a master's, if not a PhD. You can also work for a contractor. So you don't technically have to have an interest working directly for the federal government, but something that's adjacent could also satisfy the requirements. And this just includes some of those examples of areas within those agencies that students will pursue. FEMA is a big one these days with all of the hurricanes and wildfires that we've been getting. Okay, other agencies, obviously there's tons of them, right? We were just talking about the EPA. If you choose one of these agencies, you just need to make sure that you are putting some extra effort into why you need to do an international experience and why your career goals would have some international component, because these offices don't have a central international focus like the other ones do. I mentioned this already, but if you're in ROTC or if you've been in the ROTC, you need to mention that. That will give you an advantage because you've already demonstrated you have a vested interest in working for the federal government in the long term. And then some of the benefits of this scholarship are you get, just like the Gilman, you get an advantage when applying for federal jobs. You will also get tailored career advising from federal employees. So you also get the advantage of kind of that insider perspective to really tailor your kind of resume, cover letter, and interviewing skills to successfully land a federal job. Yeah, and there's all kinds of networking experiences. They'll actually fly you out to Washington, D.C. for training and jobs fair as well. Okay, so the next component is based on the language piece. So you must have a serious interest in learning a language, and you'll have to develop that language plan. And really, part of this is picking your program and making sure you pick a longer program unless you're a STEM major. So you'll need to specifically lay out how you're going to learn the language. Ideally, you'll be taking language classes, but you could learn through experiential learning like an internship or a research experience as well. That really only applies to people who have a high level of proficiency. A lot of students ask me, do you have to be proficient in order to apply for the Boren? Absolutely not. You can be a total beginner and apply for a Boren. It's a great way to explore a language you've never learned before and never had the opportunity to learn before. I will say though, while you don't have to learn the language or have experience with the language before you pursue your Boren, they will want you to convey a sense of commitment to continuing your language learning once you get back. Amanda, your dog is so cute, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's two types of programs. So one is what they call their flagship language initiatives. These are language programs that are run and organized by the federal government. And the second kind is kind of an independent program. That's where you would like pick a language program that's offered by the Learning Abroad Office or an internship offered through Hinckley. So that's another option. That's probably the most popular option. I will say the flagship initiatives seem to be less competitive and they're really well organized. And yeah, self-designed programs are run through our office. So here's a few examples. So if you're interested in French, Swahili, Twi, I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, Wolof or Zulu, they have flagship programs. So that's where you would study for a while in the US over the summer at a university that's based in the US. There's a really intensive orientation and language program to get you prepared before you go abroad in the fall. And there's often an optional spring experience if you want to extend into the spring and do basically a full 12 months of language learning. There's also a similar program for Indonesian. So you'd spend the summer studying Indonesian intensively in Wisconsin, and then you'd go to Indonesia in the fall. Similar thing for South Asian languages. There's a Hindi and an Urdu option. They've got a Turkish option now. You can't go to Turkey, but you can go to Azerbaijan. And students have really loved that. And then for self-designated, this is the most popular, I would say. You can just find a program offered through our office and use your funding towards that. So we have a ton of affiliate, exchange, and faculty-led options for language learning. They're really, really phenomenal, intensive language options. And then for fellowships, it can be a little bit more independent. That's my husband grabbing his lunch.
Don't let me.
So yeah, that can be a little bit more independent. I remember talking to the Boren folks, and they described a graduate student who wanted to learn Mongolian, and she actually was able to organize living with indigenous people in Mongolia, traveling around the country, and she hired 2 tutors to travel with her while she was doing her research project. So she learned the language and conducted research for her PhD at the same time. So you can get a little bit more independent with the fellowship program. All right, so this just shows what languages our undergraduate and graduate students are choosing. And this is actual number of awardees by country. So I guess not awardees, but countries. So yes. So students went to a total of 33 different countries for undergraduate awards and 38 different countries for graduate awards, with the majority of students in undergrad going to China and the majority of graduate students going to Jordan. Languages, Mandarin and Arabic are the most popular languages, most commonly awarded languages. But you see Russian, Portuguese, Korean, and Turkish are also on there, and Indonesian. Here's the preferences in terms of field of study. You see STEM is highly preferred, but we see non-STEM majors preferred as well, including a lot of social sciences, which would, environmental studies would fall under. And here's the majors that we see most commonly, or disciplines. International affairs is really popular, STEM, political science, economics, languages. The timeline, so you would apply in January. Our campus deadline is January 4th. You would hear back if you're a recipient by April. And you would be applying your award towards this experience that starts between, I believe, June 1st of 2021 through, I think, this end of the spring of 2022. Yeah, March 2022. That'll begin by March 2022. So it would go through the end of that spring semester. So probably through like May 2022. Yeah, our deadline is January 4th. I am the undergraduate advisor, and Jolynn Schleifarth in the graduate school is the graduate fellowships advisor. In terms of next steps, you would plan ahead, right? Start thinking about what type of program you want to do. Now is a great time to start the planning process because the deadline is in January. And I often see that it takes a long time for students to develop their essays, research their program, and put everything together, as well as requesting letters of recommendation. That can take a while as well. So really making sure that you're spending the next month or two researching, figuring out what you want to do, and then the next months after that, the next, I'm bad at math, but the following months prepping your essay, getting that ready to go is really important. So you got September, October, November, December really to work. So a couple of months of research and prep and a couple of months of essay work is really what it takes. And I've seen with the Gilman and the Boren, the students who get awarded are the students who go through several drafts and don't just submit the first draft that they come up with. So yes, so you'd apply for your Learning Abroad or Hinckley program or your flagship program if it's the Boren flagship option. And then you submit your actual scholarship application. And then you have until, I think, February, I don't know if February 5th is quite correct, but you have another month or so until you actually submit your final stuff. So we have the campus deadline, then you have the national deadline, which comes about a month after the campus deadline. Okay, so you can also, just like with the Gilman, you can contact the Boren folks. They're very responsive. They're very helpful. Everyone in the Boren office has been a recipient before. They know what the process is like. And then you can also contact me. And we are available in our office 8 to 5, virtually, 10 to 2 each day in person. I'm not there in person every day though, but more than happy to meet with you virtually to talk about your essays, to give you feedback on your essays. Same with the Gilman. I'm here as a resource and would love to meet with you to talk about your interests and goals and essays. Okay, I think we are at time here. Got a few minutes for questions. Amanda, did you have any questions about anything?
I'm okay.
Okay, thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, thanks for teaching stuff.
Of course. All right, well, thanks for attending. We're gonna be doing a virtual fair in October, and Jolynn and I are planning on doing a more intensive Boren session. So keep an eye out for advertisements for that event. It's gonna be kind of conference style. It's gonna be virtual. So another opportunity to connect with your Boren campus reps and learn more about the award. And some other scholarships too, like the Fulbright, hopefully the FLAS, Gilman again. So keep an eye out. Great. Oh, well, it was so great to meet you, Amanda, and good luck with the rest of graduate school. And I hope to see you applying for some of these awards.
Thank you.
All right, and bye to your dog too.
Bye.
All right, take care.
Oh, take care. See you.
Bye.